say I can just read off the starters because that's all we know as of now. The rest, like the bench, is just speculation. So in the West, two guards, we had Luka Doncic, Steph Curry. I know a lot of the Niners fans are excited about that. And then we had two forwards, LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, center Nikola Jokic. And then in the East, two guards, Kyrie Irving, Bradley Beal, two forwards, Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and the center, Joel Embiid. And then the captains, so these are the guys that select the teams, I believe, or they are just the captains of their respective team. It's going to be LeBron James and Kevin Durant. So, Vish, what are your first thoughts of hearing about the starters?
Yeah, I think Jamal hit it on the head. I think the biggest snub let's start with the Western Conference. For me, It was Damian Lillard. So it's hard, right? Where do you fit him in? Luka's averaging 29, 9, and 9, and Steph Curry this February. Are you kidding me? He's been just nuts. He's been insanely good. How can you leave him off? And so I think the weird thing is I just think that Damian Lillard somehow should have made it. Nikola Jokic in for sure, LeBron in for sure, Kawhi in for sure. I think it should have been Dame and Steph, and that's nothing against Luka. I just think what Dame has done these last 8 games has been a little overshadowed because Steph has been so exponentially great. But they've won 7 in a row without Nurkic, without CJ McCollum. It's basically just Damian Lillard and Gary Trent. Gary Trent shoots 44% from 3, really helps them out. Excellent defender. I mean, they're not getting much contribution from Robert Covington in the offensive end. He's shooting 35% from the floor. Carmelo Anthony is shooting 36% in the floor. I mean, Enes Kanter, what can you really get from Enes Kanter on the defensive end? He is one of the worst defensive players in the NBA. He's a good offensive player, one of the worst defensive players in the NBA. And Dame is just really putting them on his back. And they don't really they play a system that's just so Dame-centric because it's just high pick and roll, Dame go make a play. High pick and roll, Dame go make a play. And that's how they play basketball. And so there's so much on Dame's plate, and they've won 7 in a row, and he's been spectacular. So I think the big thing for him is that Steph has been so extraordinary that it's kind of overshadowed how good he's been. But I just wanted to point that out. For me, from the West, I just think even though it's really hard to say no to a guy averaging 29, 9, and 9 in Luka, I think the two guards should have been Dame and Steph, not Dame and Luka.
Yeah, so the Dame and Luka thing was definitely interesting. The one that I was more, I think, frustrated with or just annoyed at was Kyrie Irving making it. Now, Kyrie Irving's a great point guard. He's not even the second best player on his own team, though. James Harden, I think, is debatably the best point guard in the league right now. And what he did the other night without KD and Kyrie, leading a huge comeback win, was nuts. He's been playing amazing. He has the most assists in the league. He's such an underrated passer. Not really many people talk about that, but he is. Just the angles. And he always gets trapped on pick and rolls, and then his pass, usually leads to a hockey assist, so a pass to the next pass is the bucket. But yeah, man, I don't know. I'm a big Harden guy. I think he's more deserving than Kyrie. I don't know how he did not make it over Kyrie. Maybe it's because, the beginning of the season, he missed games. There was, the negative public PR around him. But yeah, that was just frustrating for me.
For me, I'm not as mad because I think Kyrie Irving's just been insane this season.
Yeah,
so it's tough to say, even though I think James Harden's the better player. And I love James Harden too.
Yeah.
And I think that any big with James Harden in the pick and roll can average 18 and 10. Kenneth Faried hadn't played basketball in 2 years with the Nuggets. He goes to Houston when James Harden, CP3, everybody's hurt, and James Harden had that 2 months of just 30-plus points every game. And Kenneth Faried is now averaging 18 and 10 for 2 months in a season because it's that easy when you're playing with James Harden. So I 100% agree with you. For me, the guy out east that really bothered me was Jaylen Brown. For me, I understand with All-Stars, we never take into defense really into account. That's why a lot of poor defensive players are All-Stars. I just think that Jaylen Brown has been phenomenal this year. It's not just the 25 points a game, the fact that he's shooting 40% from 3, 50% from the floor, all of that. It's the fact that he's also one of the best perimeter defensive players in the NBA, and that doesn't really get talked about enough. He's a phenomenal defensive player. He's one of the best two-way players in the NBA. I'd argue you could make a real argument that on the wing, when you're talking two-way players, he's in the top 5 with the LeBrons, the Kawhis, the Paul Georges. So he's right there with all of those guys. And then Jamal obviously brought up Bradley Beal. Yes, absolutely. He should have been the All-Star starter. He's been unbelievable this year. But yeah, I don't know where I'd have fit Jaylen Brown in, because I think Beal's 100% in, and then Kyrie and Harden, one of them has to be in. I don't know. And you obviously can't have an All-Star team without Giannis and then KD and Embiid. Like, who would you have put? But for me, Jaylen Brown should have been right there.
Yeah, and then we could talk about some of the bench guys who we're excited about making. I have one in mind, and he plays on the local team to me and you, and that's Zach LaVine. So he better make it, but I'm pretty confident that he will. So he's had an awesome season, right? His 3-ball has been money. He's been very, very clutch. Last night he dropped 37. I know it was against the Pistons, but your Pistons. But still, the man has been playing amazing. And one thing that for me has shown through is he is pretty clutch. This dude has made so many late game threes to either tie it or put them ahead. And they're really missing just, more talent on the team. I think Billy Donovan's done a pretty good job, getting them in a good culture. He's the exact opposite of Jim Boylan in that sense. So that's exciting at least. But
Zach LaVine. I'm 100% with you. To me, Zach LaVine has to be an All-Star. To me, there's no way Trae Young should make the All-Star team over Zach LaVine. I know Trae Young is exciting. I know Trae Young has a very exciting game because he has a really insane handle. And he's kind of a mini James Harden in the sense that he's really good at getting the free throw line. He shoots a high volume from 3, and he can kind of carry an entire offense with his passing and scoring. But to me, there's no way he should make it over Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine is the more efficient scorer. He's bigger. He's, to me, a better scorer. Trae Young's a better passer, but Trae Young's defense is an automatic bucket for the opposing team's guard. So that's there. I actually went through and I picked who I thought should have made the benches. So for me, the bench in the West should be, and there's obviously going to be some really good players that miss out. Like for me, CP3 missed out in the West, and really good players like DeMar DeRozan. But for me, it was Paul George, Donovan Mitchell, Damian Lillard, Devin Booker, De'Aaron Fox, Anthony Davis, and Zion Williamson. And I picked De'Aaron Fox partially because I'm a big De'Aaron Fox fan. I think he's wildly underrated, but I think he's had an all-star caliber season on a pretty bad team in Sacramento without a lot of help, with a pretty bad coach in Luke Walton. I think he's been playing phenomenal basketball and deserves that credit. And then the East, I had James Harden, Jaylen Brown, Domantas Sabonis, who's been unbelievable, Julius Randle, who's been unbelievable, awesome. Zach LaVine, Jason Tatum. And then, in my opinion, I think Ben Simmons is an all-star. And I really quick, before you go, I wanted to just point out one thing. Something that we've talked about on the side is Ben Simmons. We always debate about him just when we're having fun and talking with other friends and stuff. And something I've always said, and I know I've said this, is that if you let Ben Simmons play like Giannis Antetokounmpo, where you put 4 shooters around him and let him be the primary ball handler, forget his shooting and just ask him to come downhill. When you add that to his defense, I think he would average 22, 10, and 8, and he would be an all-NBA first-team caliber player. Forget his shooting. He doesn't need to shoot. Giannis doesn't really shoot. He doesn't have to shoot, and he can play that style. Now, I'm not saying he could win a championship as that style. I'm just saying he would be a high-level player playing that style. And they did it for one night where it was 4 shooters, him, because Joel Embiid was hurt against the Jazz, and he had 42, 10, and 8. So it felt really good to see that. So a one-off example, but for me, Ben Simmons is an all-star.
Interesting. And then another thing I wanted to point out too, the Donovan Mitchell, that just the Jazz in general, right? They have the #1 record in the league, only 1 all-star. Mitchell's not even a starter. Do you think he should have got more consideration for being a starter due to his team, due to how good his team has been, as well as his individual statistics? Or do you think those other guys were better and deserved it more?
Look, I don't. It's tough to say because I think that it's really tough to put him in front of Dame, Luka, or Steph. I think he's 100% should make the All-Star team. I didn't even have Gobert on my bench. Yeah, that's a little messed up. And Gobert's right there. And then Jamal brought up that Clarkson as a reserve over Anthony Davis. I agree Clarkson should be the 6th man of the year. I don't agree with Barkley on that take, but I didn't think it was crazy because Anthony Davis hasn't had a good year by his standards, and Jordan Clarkson's impact has been kind of ineffable for the Utah Jazz. He comes off the bench night in, night out, and just gets buckets. So I actually don't think it's crazy, but I there's no world where you could put Jordan Clarkson ultimately over Anthony Davis for an all-star team.
Yeah, I'm with you on the sixth man of the year. And I did want to say too, in a future NBA video, we're going to do some mid-season awards or, just like predictions for like most improved, MVP, which is heating up that conversation. Six-man comeback player. We could do a comeback player, but just stuff like that. So that's in the future.
This is a great one.
Yeah. Dude, like if he didn't play in Orlando, like he would just get talked about a lot more, I feel like. It's kind of the thing with small market teams. Like that's really just how it is.
Oh, one more guy. If we're throwing out small market teams, let me represent my Pistons and say Jeremy Grant is very close to being an all-star in my opinion. He's been very underratedly excellent this season. Phenomenal signing. It's been huge.
Yeah, and I did want to say last night he dropped 43, career high. The Pistons blew a 20-point lead to the Bulls, but overall win for them, in tanking for that number one seed.